And this is a sport four-wheeler. It is not a sport utility. There's no racks. There's no hitch. Hello everybody, coming at you with all my might. It is Smite. How you guys doing today? Today we're out here on the Can-Am Renegade 1000 XXC. So I'm gonna actually go over like a first impressions video on this ATV. I made a couple mistakes calling it a bike, and that's only because I've been riding and doing motorcycle videos for almost, or actually a decade now. When I've been doing motorcycle videos for that long, sometimes you get a little confused. So, you know, it is what it is. But what we're gonna go over today is if you have never set foot or never had any experience with one of these machines at all, and that's my knowledge coming into this, riding this vehicle. So obviously this is a 1000cc V-twin. There is so much power here and it's so responsive, especially in sport mode. We've encountered a lot of these on the trails, like when we go to places to ride, and people generally they're just putting along. So you get behind them on a bike and you're just like, man, this is torture. Why are they going so slow? Well, they're plenty capable of actually just taking off. Now the throttle response is just there. Like, I mean, if I hit a bump, you can hear it just, you know, actually, you know, just that little bit. That's just a little bit of thump. And you can hear how responsive that is. It actually does. It just wants to take off. Now that's in sport mode, you know, it's definitely a little bit less responsive in normal, and even way less responsive in eco. So there's more modes. The suspension is crazy awesome. It's hard to explain the capabilities of this. I mean, you just see, you can just literally just light it up. Now unless you actually have been on a vehicle like this, you have no idea, because like I said, we have had no idea for so long of what they were actually capable of. And I made a video about saying how this quad is scary, because I mean, it has 91 horsepower and people scoff at that, but you don't actually have the torque numbers on this vehicle, because I couldn't find them online. But with and everybody's like, oh, you should just ride a two-stroke. I've literally ridden a two-stroke for the last, well, ever since I rode a dirt bike, I've ridden two-strokes. My first bike was a YZ125. So just getting onto this thing for the first time, the power is insane, unlike anything I've ever been on. If you know a lot about motors and like how twins work versus singles, and you know, inlines, because I had sport bikes. I had a S1000 RR XR, sorry, not an RR obviously, because the RR is a lot more aggressive. The XR would be, but it's still, you know, 180 horsepower motorcycle versus a 91 horsepower ATV. But there's something about the V-twins, like how they deliver power. And this thing can really just absolutely shred. Now I'm not doing that right now because I'm actually trying to get a fluent sentence out, but give me a second here and we will shred it. But that just gives you an overview. Everybody says they're slow. There's a lot of hate from the motorcycle community when you say a Can-Am, and a lot of people think these are not just racing machines. And a lot of that's because people think that these are like a sport utility, and this is a sport four-wheeler. It is not a sport utility. There's no racks, there's no hitch, there's no nothing. I mean, I have a rack because someone put a rack on it. So we're gonna send it now, and here we go. It's a little wet, so I gotta be careful. And when people are asking, one guy said, why don't you just hold it steady? Because there's just, with the automatic transmission that this has, the CVT, if you hold it steady, it continues to actually speed up, because that transmission's getting wider and changing your gear ratio and altering it to give you more speed. So that's why you gas it and then let off. At least that's why I gas it. But then again, I haven't had this four-wheeler for very long, so maybe I just don't know how to ride it. But it is crazy fast, and you know, good resist suspension. Try not to blow these turns, because it is ultra slippery out. And of course I have it in four-wheel drive, because it does not like the turn if you're not in four-wheel drive. In these conditions, now this is like super slick. I would never be able to go this fast with my motorcycle. And everybody, I say everybody, but I'll just say that there's a great majority of comments that I get that are people are saying there's no possible way a dirt bike should ever lose to this four-wheeler. But I can literally just accelerate through the mud because I got 4 tires. I mean, we're doing like 31. It's automatic, so you don't have to shift. You have all the power because it's a twin. You are always going to be on the peak power, because that's how CVT transmissions work. It gets the engine up to the peak power output, and then it just rides the transmission out to the point where it is just giving you all of the beans. Every last bean is being utilized and propelling you forward, whereas it's not being utilized in just spinning the tires, because it doesn't really spin the tires for very long until it changes the gear ratio and you start picking up speed. Whereas if I were to have to shift, I would have shifted like 6 different times to get the speeds that I'm getting out of this with the automatic transmission. So you have to be like a professional racer. Everybody's like saying how a Raptor would just shred this four-wheeler, and I don't buy it. A person's like, oh, Banshee, I would just eat your four-wheeler with a Banshee. Which, unless you spend enough money on your Banshee to get it to the point where it can handle as well as this four-wheeler, I don't see it happening. Because everyone that I've talked to, and I have no personal experience with the Banshee, honestly, every person that I talked to said that the Banshee suspension sucks, because I don't know, they were made in the 2000s. This ATV is literally 20 years newer than a Banshee. It would be. So, with that being said, I think it's gonna perform a little bit better because it has better suspension. Better suspension, better power, and it's all-wheel drive. There's just a whole lot of people that I don't believe have had any experience with these four-wheelers and what they're capable of, and they are just absolute monsters. And that's my first impressions, is this is a monster, and it should be respected as such. And that tree is getting lower and lower.